Welcome. So today we talk about Mehboob Khan. And when we talk about Mehboob Khan, one of the major films that we need to talk about is his pioneering venture, Mother India, 1957. But before we go into a more in depth discussion of Mother India, it is interesting to understand from where, his early experiences. Mehboob began his career with the Sagar movie tone, and some of his early films in the 30s are Deccan Queen, even Ali Baba. So, but in fact, if the way we read Mehboob now, the way we study Mehboob Khan's films now, is that probably one could sort of read the traces of that in one of his early films, that is Aurat, 1940. With Aurat, there is this very interesting drawing. Aurat is drawing, as it were, from the British documentary style. And you can see in the ways in which it is producing a kind of a creative reimagination of the everyday.
इसका बाप भी ऐसी ही था। जब हुआ था तो ऐसा ही था, क्या कहता था।
वृंदावन में धूम मची है उड़े हवा में गुलाल वृंदावन में धूम मची है
वृंदावन में धूम मची है, उड़े हवा में गुलाल। वरदारी मारे राधा श्याम अखलाल, वरदारी मारे राधा श्याम अखलाल।
The land itself is a very, very powerful imagery in these films. Something that becomes particularly important in a film like Mother India. But even in Aurat, also when you look at a film like Roti, you will see that some of the influences that are there on Mehboob Khan are both from the Soviet school as well as from the sort of Hollywood large scale films about the nation and landscape. So if you think about the film Mother India, and it's preceded by the film Aurat 1940 and Mother India 1957, in any case a unique case in the sense that Mehboob not only starts his own production, he starts his own studio. Mehboob studio is still operational in Bandra, Bombay at the moment, and you will find that what Mehboob is there for, through by launching his own production company, by launching, in fact, by building his own studio, there is an imagination of a particular kind of a cinema that he wants to build, as it were, or manufacture or create, as it were. But Mother India is, as I was mentioning, is really a myth as far as Indian cinema is concerned. It has been screened across the world. It has been a huge, huge success in Greece. There are recent writings like the writing by Brian Larkins about the itinerary of Mother India, and it talks about how Mother India was a cult in Nigeria. So Mother India is not merely of important Indian film. If even if we are looking at the history of cinema in many of the countries in Asia, even in Africa, then Mother India is really at the center, at the core of film cultures.
देवी राधा के रूप में आते हुए लाज ना आई, मेरे रूप में आई हो तो अपनी लाज लुटते हुए भी देख लो। हंसो नहीं, हंसो नहीं, संसार का भार उठा लोगी देवी, ममता का बोझ न उठाया जाएगा। मां बनकर देखो, तुम्हारे पांव भी टगमगा जाएंगे।
देवी यहाँ से नहीं जाएगी।
खबरदार राधा,
छोड़ दो,
लगाना,
छोड़ दो,
लगाना,
छोड़ दो। देवी ने तुम्हें धन दिया है और मुझे निर्धन बनाकर तुम्हारे सामने लाई है। मैं देवी को बताऊंगी कि रास्ता दिखाना सहल है, पर रास्ते पर चलना बहुत कठिन।
What Mother India was doing Of course, it was one of the early color films, but there is a particular kind of a color tone. The color of the, especially when you look at it now, the color of the earth and the color of the blood as though overlapping very powerfully. And this is not only a reading, there are scenes to which I will come, where there is this very, very interesting overlaps of this kind of imageries. The idea about blood, the idea about earth, Mother Earth. But if we talk about, let's say, the opening sequence of Mother India. So Mother India opens with building, nation building. And it is well known that Mehboob Khan was very close to Nehru in the sense that he borrowed and believed in his idea of nation building, and his films in particular, especially if you look at Roti, the pre-independence film, and also Aurat, another pre-independence film, but especially Mother India, 10 years after the independence, it is aligning with the Nehruvian imagination of the nation, which is, there are, let's say, two aspects. One is the tilling of the land, the idea of green revolution. The other is, dam building the nation in terms of its technological growth, in scientific growth, and so on. So Mother India opens with this huge kind of shots of, really long shots of the dam being built, and there is a kind of a mobilization of a lot of machinery and so on.
अपने गांव में पानी की नहर आई है ना, गांव वाले उसका मुहूर्त तेरे हाथों से करवाना चाहते हैं।
ना बोलती है, अरे तू तो हमारी माँ है, सारे गांव की माँ है। नहर तेरे हाथों खुलेगी नहीं तो नहीं खुलेगी।
हाँ कह देना माँ।
Then you come to this parched face of the mother. The mother's face, played by Nargis, very iconic role, is like the land that has become dry, the land that needs to be tilted. As I was saying, the film opens with the mother who has been invited, who has been requested to inaugurate the dam. And when she picks up this piece of land, she immediately seems to, and there is this garland around her neck, she immediately remembers, she goes into this memory, into this reverie, and that's how Mother India begins. The land, the landscape, and the mother, but the mother's face seem to represent the land. So while some of the images are borrowed from the Soviet school of cinema, as Gayatri Chatterjee and Ashish Rajadhyaksha point out, but what is interesting, if you look at the Soviet propaganda posters, the way the figures are drawn out, the ways the figures are composed, let's say 3 characters, 4 characters are composed against the sky, and in the foreground you have this crop that is telling us about peasants, about work, about women's participation in this nation building. Some of those very, very powerful imageries, low angle, the face held high and against the sky, that kind of images of Mother India. A very popular poster, in fact, the mother carrying the plough, has been drawn from that kind of iconography. So, to quote from Gayatri Chatterjee, where she says that Mehboob and Irani, his previous producer, had seen Vidor's, King Vidor's Our Daily Bread, and that was something that remained very influential for them. Also, what you have is this influence of the Soviet constructivist painters. So, in that sense, Mother India belongs. And in fact, if you look at Mehbooba's emblem, it has the sickle, which is a very powerful emblem of the Soviet communist movement. However, Mehboob was not really a communist. He was part of this Nehruvian idea of building the nation, where the question of labor, the question of peasant, the question of poverty, the question of building the nation through this kind of dams, bridges, factories, large-scale factories, are part of this imagination. If we go back to this film Roti, it's very, very dramatic, and the ways in which 4 people or 5 people, they are sort of composed, the use of the light, the editing, the use of the music, you can clearly see that kind of Nehruvian imagination, which is drawing from the socialist imagination, is sort of visualized and narrated through the film.
क्यों रखता रोटी रोटी, क्यों रखता रोटी रोटी, भूख लगी है, भूख लगी है, भूख लगी है। आखा अंगारे खा, आखा अंगारे खा, भूखे गगन के तारे खा, आखा अंगारे खा, भूखे गगन के तारे खा। हिम्मत तेरी छोटी, हिम्मत तेरी छोटी, हिम्मत तेरी छोटी, हिम्मत तेरी छोटी। मर जाएगा, मर जाएगा।
Going back to Mother India has been read in many ways. The music of Mother India, the figure of Mother India in the film, the iconic figure of Mother India, and also the ending of Mother India. The mother, if you see the film, goes through a range of hardships. Her husband deserts her. So you have this absentee father figure who has already been sort of, left sort of weakened because he has lost his arms. You have the mother going through, there are floods, there are famine, one of her child dies, there is sexual violence, and even then the mother survives. There's this very iconic images that have circulated over films, through the public memory, is this mother who is pushing the son, and instead of the bulls you have the 2 sons who are plowing the land. She is the only person who would not desert the village even after many hardships, and eventually they would grow the crop.
दुनिया में हम आए हैं तो जीना ही पड़ेगा, जीवन है अगर जहर तो पीना ही पड़ेगा। दुनिया में हम आए हैं तो जीना ही पड़ेगा, जीवन है अगर जहर तो पीना ही पड़ेगा। गिर गिर के मुसीबत में संभलते ही रहेंगे, जल जाए मगर आग पे चलते ही रहेंगे। गिर गिर के मुसीबत में संभलते ही रहेंगे, जल जाए मगर आग पे चलते ही रहेंगे।
Needless to say, this crop has several iconic meaning. It is connected with the ideology of the nation, but it is also connected with the larger idea of nation that is circulating, in many of these new nations, but particularly, let's say, Soviet Russia, and also to an extent, something that is represented in American films. So these are sort of, let us say, these are popular iconographies that are circulating through many cultures. That there are readings that Mother India has influenced films like Ganga Jamuna, 1960, also in fact a film like Diwar, 1975. So you have, this idea of the mother at the center of the story, the absentee father, the law that is in a way influencing their lives, and the two sons who are, one of them is aligning with the state, the other who was an outlaw. In this film, in Mother India, Birju is the outlaw. But what you will find towards the end is that he sort of violently takes away all the papers that Sukhi Lala had, and he was unlawfully, in a way, cheating the peasants, and he burns all the papers. He abducts Sukhi Lala's daughter, and he's about to run away. So there is this extremely kind of a well-known scene in which when Birju is trying to abduct Sukhi Lala's daughter, and the mother stops him. So he says that I am your son and you can't kill me, and she says that I can give my son but not my honor, and she's the honor of our land. So she shoots her son.
लाला चाची मुझे बचाओ। रूपा को छोड़ दे, मैं तुझे जान से मार डालूंगी।
तू मुझे नहीं मार सकती, तू मेरी माँ है।
मैं एक औरत हूँ।
मैं तेरा बेटा हूँ।
रूपा सारे गांव की बेटी है, वो मेरी लाज है। बिरजू, मैं बेटा दे सकती हूँ, लाज नहीं दे सकती।
तुम मार सकती है तो मार, मैं भी अपनी कसम नहीं तोड़ूंगा।
There is this very, very sort of, melodramatic scene in the way Mehboob channelizes images, music. In fact, this very powerful hyperbolic uses of dialogue, of the entire sort of plot element. So you have the mother, after the son has been shot, there is blood all over. She embraces him, and when she embraces him, there is this blood sipping out of the fingers. There is this very well-known sort of dissolve, which there's a dissolve with the blood seeping out of her fingers, with the muddy, bloody water coming out of the canal, which she inaugurates. So there are two levels of story, I would say. One, a meta story, which frames and which says that here we should participate in the nation building. And on the other hand, there are these small stories, especially the story of the mother and Birju, which tells us that there has been numerous physical suffering which has produced the nation. Mehboob, like all interesting directors, are extremely complicated. Mehboob's earlier film, 1949, Andaz, is also about this new nation. especially Ravi Vasudevan, has read Andas and has tried to read it the ways in which the melodramatic forms develops through this film Andas. Andas has been a very important text and it has been read often within the film studies in the way it tells us about a nation which has just become independent, but the ways in which it is looking at the question of modernity. And at the center of this question of modernity is the question of gender.
फरमाइए।
क्या वाकई तुम्हें अब इस फूल में खुशबू नहीं मालूम होती?
बात ये नीना कि मुझे नज़ला हो गया। सुनो, आज शाम को शीला की पार्टी में भी तो जाना है। किस वक्त?
5 बजे।
5 बजे। बुरा ना मानना, मैं माता जी से मिलने जा रहा हूँ और वहां से 5 बजे टेनिस खेलने चला जाऊंगा। तुम ऐसा करना कि शाम को दिलीप के साथ पार्टी में चली जाना।
To quote from Kishore Valicha on Andas, he says that how, Andas represented a certain idea of being modern, being sophisticated, being urban, being new India. So it represented urban sophistication, included, this woman who rode horses, who played piano, who was a little frivolous, who befriended men rather freely, and the entire complexity grows from that. But at the heart of it is also something very interesting, that is the rise of the capitalist. So on the surface, when it is actually it appears to be a love triangle between some of the really, really powerful, stars of the period. You have Nargis, you have Raj Kapoor, you have Dilip Kumar in that film. But it is very interesting as to the characters which Dilip Kumar and Raj Kapoor play. While Raj Kapoor plays an aristocrat who is going into this kind of a new capitalist mode, you have Dilip Kumar, and he says he comes from Africa, as though he comes from nowhere. And he is this sort of, bourgeois who is rising, or a person without any aristocratic background entering into this field of capitalism. That, however, is a kind of a reading of Andas in the ways it says, in the ways the scholars particularly say, that it is actually the problem of this transition from, let's say, the faith in aristocracy to, a new world emerging, a new world which was open to the typical capitalist promise that you can rise to the top because of the dint of your own labor. So, but the complexity is played out because it's a film. It is played out through the story of this girl who is this young girl, young modern girl. She wears pants. She is very, very open about her friendship with Dilip and the complexities that emerge out of that because her fiancé misunderstands and so on. So eventually, Andas therefore ends in a rather problematic way. So Andas ends with, finally, this woman killing Dilip, and then eventually she's punished, in fact jailed, for the crimes she commits. And what are her crimes? Her crimes are that she had crossed her, her prescribed position, and she had been too friendly with a man.
आप तो कवि मालूम होते हैं।
कवि तो नहीं, लेकिन जिस कवि का गीत एक बार भी गुनगुना दिया उसे कालिदास जरूर बना दिया।
तो आप प्रीतम तानसेन साहब, देर किस बात की? क्या ना हाजिर है?
आज कहीं दिल खो बैठे हम आज कहीं.
So, in a way, Andaz, Mother India, and other films, also Roti in particular, are very, very important and landmark films as far as Indian cinema is concerned. Not simply because they tell us about the kind of crisis the nation was going through. It is in fact about, it is negotiating that crisis, about becoming modern, about a nation that has to be built from the wreckage as it were. But as far as the style is concerned, as far as this emergence of the really large socials are concerned, both Andaz and particularly Mother India remain crucial and historically significant.